and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be story time with Jessie Cat. If you haven't seen my face before, my name is Jessie Cat, and my channel is about as random as I am. I recorded a video just a little bit ago. It's a get ready with me video, just talking about some of the things that I've been doing here lately. If you'd like to see how I accomplish this look, go on over and check that video out. But today, I decided to go ahead and just get comfortable on my couch, and I'm going to read a little bit more of the story that I started last week. Disclaimer, this story is about a serial killer after young women. There is talk about rape and beating and murder. Some BDSM topics are in there. It's just, it could be a trigger to some people who aren't used to stories like this. I know true crime is a huge deal right now, and I wanted to just make up my own story. So this story is completely fictional. Nothing in it is true. Nothing in it actually happened. All the names are made up. I'm sorry if, it happens that somebody actually out there has these names or what have you, but this is actually just a story completely out of my own head. My parents always told me that I was really good at telling stories, and so that is why I'm going to attempt to make a series out of this. So we started this story last week. It's called The One That Got Away, or that is what it's called. Yes, the one who got away. And it's about a woman who 10 years prior was kidnapped by a serial killer who basically, he kept her a lot longer than the others because she showed more promise, but she was able to escape, and she was the only victim who was ever able to get away. So she was put into witness protection. I'm sorry, I'm hearing cars outside. Anyway, she was put into witness protection, and a whole decade later, another girl was able to get away. So that is where we are at right now. They are discussing this new girl that they've also brought to her sanctuary, her safe place. So I'm just going to go ahead and go right on into it and continue reading where we left off. So grab a snack, grab a drink, get comfortable on your couch, get comfortable in your bed, put your jammies on. I'm wearing my jammies today to do this video. I've been scratching, so I'm a little red. And since Easter is coming up this weekend, I'm wearing my bunny ears just for the Easter. And I also did a really cute Easter makeup look. Like I said, check that video out. I'll link it in the description below. So, let's get back on into the story. She was speaking to the agent, and she saw the RV backing up, and the agent... Okay, this is where we're going to start. I'm really good at telling stories, so let's get on into it. Okay, this is Agent Riley talking. That's how your niece got here with her older brother, Agent Riley said, matter of fact. Trust me, Anna. I know what I'm doing. All bases are covered. This will be good for everyone. Now, Agent Connor has been briefed on every single thing about this case. He was in the behavioral analysis unit in the FBI, wanted a transfer, and since he already had knowledge of this case, this is where he's at now. One more thing, this man is like my son. I've trained him in everything he knows, and he'll be around you a lot because he wants to hear your story, and Alana's as well. I know you don't want to talk about it, and I know how you feel about men, but this one is a good man, I promise. He's being groomed to take my place when I retire, which I don't plan on doing for some time now, but he needs the experience, so I'll go out and get them so you can meet them. She watched him leave through the back door. She turned then and looked at Willow. Did you know about this before he came? Do not lie to me. Remember, I know when you're lying. No, I didn't know. I'm sure which was done on purpose, so I wouldn't tip you off. They all know how close we are, and I never keep anything from you, no matter what it is. I will agree with Agent Riley. We need a bit of change around here. A little more life. Plus, I seriously hope this dude is a hunk, because Mama needs some D. That made her giggle, and some of the anxiety she was feeling. You are so crass. I can't believe that's the first thing that crosses your mind when new men get introduced. I don't get the fascination with sex. She gave her friend a pointed look. Willow snorted and said, It's because your innocence was stolen from you and you've never been able to have a conversation with any man unless he reminded you of your grandpa. So with that said, I'm going to be crass again, as you so stated. You need some too. By a man that will do it the right way. Hell, maybe this man can get the job done. Just then, a deep, smooth voice chimed in from the doorway. What job are you referring to? Both women turned at the same time to see a very impressive man, over 6 foot, blonde hair, sparkling blue eyes, and a jawline forever. He was definitely what women would call classically handsome. He also seemed quite physically fit as well by the way his broad shoulders touched both sides of her doorway. She realized then that neither had answered yet and stumbled around to say, Nothing, sir, just some girl talk. I stuttered, What is wrong with me? He stepped forward and extended his large hands to her. You must be Anna. I'm Agent Connor, but you can call me Eli. She tentatively placed her hand in his for a quick shake. Then he stepped back. She could barely breathe, but for once it wasn't a panic attack. He just consumed her with one look. He then shook Willow's hand and stepped out of the doorway. For a girl with features so similar to hers, she felt like she was looking in a mirror. The only difference was she could tell this girl loved her makeup and being a socialite. She stepped through the door and looked around, scrunched up her nose, and stated, I think I'll just stay in the RV. This is just too much country living for me. A pampered princess, huh? Well, she'd show her a thing or two. Hi, I said, stepping towards her. I'm Annalise. The girl finally looked at her with a bit of a startled expression on her face, probably noticing the similarities too. Her look softened and she came toward me, and instead of shaking my hand like a normal person, she hugged me. I won't lie, it was kind of nice. Another survivor, someone like her, she stepped back, holding my hands in her perfectly manicured hand, and said, You are the true survivor, Anna. I didn't endure a tenth of what you did. The worst I had it was walking half naked. I guess maybe that's how I can try to feel okay about everything. I would really like to talk about it. Only when you want to, though. I know a thing or two about being questioned endlessly. She winked at her and let her go. Maybe she wasn't as pampered as she thought. The girl had a heart in there. I would like to talk to you about it as well. I'd rather spare you all the gory details, but if we can compare our experiences, then maybe we can find something else to help catch him. Agreed. And I'm sorry about my remark earlier about this being too country. It's actually kind of cute. It's growing on me. One question. Please tell me you have a clawfoot tub here somewhere. There was a sparkle in her hazel eyes, and she had to admit she was warming up to this girl quickly. We might have one or two of those around here somewhere, I jested. OMG, she squealed. I've always wanted a bath in one of those. I think a good soak would do me some good. Be away from Agent Connor for a bit. He's kind of a stick in the mud. She turned and winked at him. He just smiled at her. Willow jumped in then and said, I will show you your room and the bathroom with your fantasized tub. She grabbed Alana by the arm and pulled her out of the kitchen. She's not as cold-hearted as she seems, Eli said. I can tell that about her. She uses that as her armor. I get it. She shrugged her shoulders and then said, I'm not comfortable being around a lot of men, or men in general. You're the first one in my house other than Agent Riley. Any of the others just always go through Willow. I know, that's also why I'm staying in the RV and not in the house, he stated. But you're in my house now, and I'm tired and would really like some downtime before I go back to work. I'll be honest with you, I don't like any of this, but I also know it's necessary. But it doesn't mean I have to babysit that girl either. I said, taking a seat at the table across from the agent. You're not babysitting her. That's why I'm here. But we need you to give her your rules. I know you have them. I've been briefed on everything you have going on here. I also know that I'm breaking one of your rules now sitting here. You both may look almost exactly alike, but the similarities stop there. She's your complete opposite, and I know Agent Riley thinks she'll be good for you, but I don't know about that. She's a little wild. Just don't let her talk you into anything that might compromise the situation here, okay? She sighed. She was getting aggravated. She'd been doing this for 10 years. She knew exactly what needed to be done to maintain their safety. She gave Mr. Connor a pointed look. I know what I'm doing. I've been in hiding for a decade now. No life. Boyfriends, husbands, friends, nothing. I work here to make a little bit of a living so I don't have to fully depend on the government for everything. Honestly, you all should have faked my death too, and this wouldn't be happening right now. She stood up then and walked to the back door and opened it. Now, please, since you already know my rules, it's time for you to go. She watched him get up from the table and walk right out the back door. She was exhausted already, and it was barely noon. There were too many new people around her, and she felt like this new girl here wasn't just so the agents can keep her safe, but because the killer wanted it as well. He was smarter than this and wouldn't have just let her go and also give up his location, his home, his sanctuary. No way in hell he'd have compromised that. Unless it was all planned out perfectly, down to him acting crazy, obsessed, and unraveling. She had a feeling he was going to be coming after her, and coming very soon. All right, that is the end of chapter 1. That is the part I didn't get to in my last video because I didn't plan everything very well. So, we are going to go into chapter 2, and a little bit of a spoiler alert with this. It's going to go deeper into some of the things she endured while she was in captivity. And it's not pretty. I didn't go into a whole lot of detail while writing this. I tried to keep it as PG as possible, but like I said before, there could be a trigger warning. We're only going to read a few minutes of this just to give you a gist, and then maybe next week we can continue with more of the story, if you all like it. I'm really hoping that you guys like it because makeup is one thing I absolutely love. It's my happy place. I love doing makeup. But I also like reading. I love reading. I can read 10 books a week if I really wanted to sit down and just do that. But I also like dabbling in writing as well. So let's read a little bit of chapter 2. And please, in the comments below, let me know what y'all think. So, chapter 2. Annalise spent the rest of the day in her office working on another book. No one knew about this book. It was hers, her story, with every single detail that happened to her from the moment she was abducted from the library to her first time being found in witness protection. She shuddered at what was on the screen before her. She was up to one of the last nights she had been there with him. She knew this night was different from all the others. He cooked her a nice dinner, lit candles, allowed her to shower, gave her new clothes to wear instead of the torture she had been enduring. He was a sadist through and through. She'd been beaten, electrocuted to an inch of her life, cut up, and the rape was the worst. It would last for what seemed like hours. Not only did he just take what he wanted from her, he also made sure she had finished multiple times before he'd finish himself. It was so sick and twisted. He always made sure she cleaned up really well after, and he'd always use protection. She knew he only did that so DNA couldn't be found there. It was only one time he did it without, then forced her in a hot shower that burned her skin and made her scrub until she was raw. Thankfully, that was the only time he ever did that. But that night, he was sweet, gentle, like he was about to regret something he was about to do. She knew she was going to die that night, and if she didn't get away, she'd die right there. So she played him. She'd been with him for a week or more. Him talking to her, telling her about himself, all the things he wanted to do to her, and all the things he still planned on doing. But he'd always add, "We only have a limited amount of time together, my pet. I have to make it as memorable as possible." Now that it killed her to play a doting girlfriend who didn't want to leave him ever, she had no choice. It was now life or death. She had just finished the best damn steak ever when she looked over at him with a pout. He noticed her shift and looked at her with that masked face of his. "What's wrong, my pet?" he said, stroking her back. She wanted to crawl out of her skin. She knew by now he liked his women completely submissive, so she looked down at her plate, trying to pretend to be demure. "Ah, I see you've learned to never look me in the eye. This is new, my pet. I will say you are my favorite, and I'd love to keep you longer," he said, sighing. She had hoped that was her cue to lay it on thick, like she was in love with the idea of him and his deviances. She raised her face just enough for him to see her smile, and raised up one finger. He taught her to never to speak unless he gave her permission, which of course she fought, but knew if she wanted to keep the charade going she'd have to play along, and putting her finger up was asking if she could speak. That really seemed to please him. His whole body changed almost like he was relieved that she was now catching on, and he nodded at her to speak. She still didn't raise her head and kept her voice low, just like he liked. "I don't want to leave. I want to stay here with you, sir." He liked being called sir or master. Master was more for when he was sexually assaulting her, but nonetheless, he seemed to really brighten at that. I do believe you're learning, my pet, and you're showing your potential to be trained further. You'll have to prove your loyalty to me before I really start believing you actually want to stay. But I will say, you've made the most improvement out of all of them. What will you do, my pet, to prove your loyalty for me?" She got out of her chair, moved it out of the way, and kneeled down on her knees with her hands palms up, looking at the floor. His practices she was familiar with because she had done a study on BDSM before, found it a bit fascinating, but never thought about it since. She knew what the submissive gestures were, and this one was number one, and one of the first ones he taught her to do after bringing her to his cabin. He pushed his chair back and stood up. She knew what was coming now. She was going to have sex with this guy and pretend she was loving every minute of it. But he surprised her once again by grabbing her hands and helping her off the floor. He then led her to his actual bedroom. Not the room he had been holding her in, but his room. He led her over to the bed. This room was just like hers, just cleaner. The bed was made. There wasn't any random clothes or anything laying around. It was completely spotless. "I've been dying to bring you in this room, but up until now you haven't been worthy. Everything I've done so far is to train you for this role, only to serve me for as long as you shall live," he said as he paced in front of her. "But, my pet, you still have a lot more training ahead of you. I have faith that you'll be perfect, but tonight I won't train you. Tonight is all about tender, sweet lovemaking. Now it's when you prove how much you want me." She inwardly cringed and nodded her head. Then the torture began. It didn't last as long as normal, and she felt like she did everything right, including the noises and everything else with it. She didn't have any experience with sex. The only time she'd ever done anything was with this man, and it was always forced. But after it was all over, he pulled the blankets over them and snuggled her close. No ties, no bonds, nothing. Just him holding her. This side of him almost scared her more than the sadistic side, which she also knew would continue after this, so she had to get out of there somehow. She still hadn't ever seen his face, and before this night she'd never actually seen his body. Now she had, and couldn't help but notice all the scars he had covering a lot of his torso and back. For a second, just 1 second, she was curious as to what happened to him, and maybe it was the reason he was doing what he was doing now. But at this point, she needed a plan to escape, and unfortunately for her, her body and mind were fully exhausted, and she couldn't keep her eyes open any longer, and she passed out. All right, y'all. That is the end of that little snippet. Next week, I will go into finish chapter 2 and go into chapter 3. Sorry, I had some mark where I stopped reading. Anyway, I really hope you all are enjoying this little story time with Jessie Cat. Like I said, I really do enjoy dabbling in writing, and I've never actually ever shared a story with anyone before. So this is my first time even sharing something that I've wrote with anybody, family, whatever. I mean, I used to share little stories as kids and wrote things in school and stuff, but this is different. Anyway, remember, you are loved. You are unique. You are worth it. We are all perfectly imperfect. Don't ever forget that. And I will see you all next week. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Bye, y'all.